Time to go in depth on this Friday. The country's veterans have a story to tell, and Bay Area students are making sure that none of us forget. They're part of the Veterans History Project, collecting interviews and taking notes from surviving war vets. Those stories won't just be shared here. They're part of a larger project in the Library of Congress. Bay Newsline's Melissa Eichman explains how some George Jenkins High School students in Lakeland are making history by recording it.
4 George Jenkins High School students are getting the opportunity of a lifetime. The interviews they conduct with veterans here at Congressman Ross's office are going to the Library of Congress. Taryn Rentz and 3 of her classmates are interviewing veterans from World War II, Korea, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. A real-life lesson in history for this future generation, helping to preserve the past. The students are asking the veterans a variety of questions and recording everything along the way.
I definitely hope that we can carry on everything that they have done for us and really try and be the country that they want us to be, like the country that they're protecting.
Taryn says there's a lot of pressure to be part of something so huge and so historic, but she's excited and honored to be here. In Lakeland, Melissa Eichman, Bay News 9.
Joining us now from Lakeland is Congressman Dennis Ross. Dennis, always good to see you from the 12th District. Now, tell me about this project. What motivated you to get involved in it, and what was your involvement?
Well, my involvement is to be the conduit between the students at George Jenkins High School who are in the media class that are actually videotaping these veterans in conjunction with the program that was created in 2000 with the Library of Congress. My father, who passed away 2 months ago, was a World War II veteran that had the opportunity to have his story memorialized under this same program. It's a wonderful chance for not only the students, but the grandchildren and children of all those veterans out there to hear the story of the brave men and women in their service to this country.
You know, we just passed the mark of the 70th anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and as I was watching that ceremony and seeing how few soldiers and sailors we actually had left, you know, it reminded me how important it is to capture these stories.
Al, it is incredibly important. You know, as a kid, I grew up not being able to really pry from my dad the stories of his traumatic experience when he lost his ship in World War II in the South Pacific. The gentlemen, the women that came back from World War II, that came back from Korea, from Vietnam, from the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts, we need to be able to memorialize this if they wish us to learn it. But more importantly, once we learn it, it builds a deep appreciation for this country and what people, men and women, have gone through to preserve our freedoms.
You know, I heard a critic of the wars basically saying we're very quick at getting in the wars, but we're not very quick at learning the lessons and what we should learn from the people who fought those wars.
Well, that's true. I mean, wars are a very difficult thing. I think at all costs we need to avoid wars. But having been able to be successful in most of our conflicts, especially the major ones, we are an example. We are a tremendous example of what a country and our democracy has been the greatest known to mankind. And I think these gentlemen, these ladies that are here to tell their stories will tell you why it was so important, why they wanted to go, why they volunteered. And when they came home, they didn't ask for anything in return. They just wanted to be part of the freedom, part of the glory of being in the United States of America.
Now, Dennis, do we know what's going to happen to this once it gets in the library? Because, again, it's one thing to have all of those memories in the Library of Congress. Yes. It's another thing for people like you and me to be able to access that. Do we know it goes beyond this point?
They will be accessible. I do not have the particulars with me right now, but once they are completed, once the high school students finish the project, we submit them to the Library of Congress, they will be accessible for all to see, either in person if you wish to come visit us in Washington, D.C., or online. It's a wonderful experience. I would hope that not only the students, but all who have an interest in what our veterans have done will take the time to hear these stories.
And lastly, if you happen to be a veteran out there and you have some incredible stories that you've never told anybody and you'd like to have them preserved, is there a way that they can become a part of this project?
Contact our office. The best thing to do is contact our office. Our outreach coordinator, Kristen Collis, is more than happy to work with you, to work with these veterans. We want to see their stories memorialized. You know, the letters that we're back into from families to the servicemen and women overseas are so important. But what's really important is if we could get their stories, if we could memorialize that for generations hereafter. I think it will only do wonders to strengthen the confidence that we have in this country and to allow these next generations to be motivated to flourish.
Congressman Dennis Ross from Lakeland. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Great project.
Thank you, Al. Thanks. I'm glad to be a part of it.
And joining me right now is Virgil Myers, who served with the Army in the 80th Infantry during World War II in European theater. Virgil, thank you so much for being with us now. The students are going to get a chance to talk to you about your experiences during World War II. What do you think you're going to tell them?
Well, whatever they ask me, my experiences in France and during the Battle of the Bulge and possibly crossing the Rhine River and eventually going to Buchenwald.
Oh my gosh. Now, here's the thing with kids. Kids don't understand that during World War II that we didn't have all this great communication and this ease of moving from place to place. How traumatic was that for you as a young person?
Well, it really wasn't very traumatic because we just followed orders and did what they told us.
Oh my gosh.
So
now,
it was actually fairly easy for us.
Now, did you enlist or were you drafted?
No, I was deferred twice because of the work I was in. I was supervising manufacturing of food with Quaker Oats Company at St. Joseph, Missouri, and they deferred me twice because they thought that was more important manufacturing food for the Army than it was for me to go in. But finally, I decided to go in.
Now, I know one of the things that they will ask you about is, did you lose a lot of friends in the war?
Yes, I did.
And tell me a little bit more about that. Were they any that had joined about the time that you did, or were these people that you just knew in the 80th Infantry?
Well, it was people that had joined before, and then also during the war, I lost a lot of the veterans that I was with.
Virgil, have we learned anything since World War II in terms of getting involved in wars?
I don't know. At that time, it's completely different today than back at that time because we fought with numbers back then. Today we fight technology.
And yet, the world, I don't think a lot of young people realize, the world really was in balance in World War II. It could have gone either way.
That's right, it could have. If the Germans had been 6 months faster with their atomic experiments and also their jet planes, we would have still been over there.
Now, one thing, you know, my father fought in World War II, and to the day that he died, I could never get him to tell me much about his experience because he was with the liberation troops and saw many of the concentration camps. Did you see any of those kind of areas when you were there?
I happened to be one of 3 fellows that came upon Buchenwald concentration camp on April the 12th of 1945 at Weimar, just north of Weimar.
No, and I can tell that's something you will never, ever forget.
No, that's right, because at the time we found the camp, or came upon the camp, there were 26,000 people still in that camp.
Oh, man. Virgil, thank you so much for sharing these stories with us and with those high school students. It's great that we're going to have these kind of things preserved forever. Virgil, thank you again.
Okay, thank you.
Now, the United States Congress created the Veterans History Project back in the year 2000. An interesting project, and we'll continue to follow up on it here on Bay News 9. And that does it for today's In Depth. By the way, you can see this and other past reports on Bay News 9 On Demand. That's channel 342 on your Bright House Network's digital cable.